E3 2019 is a strange one because PlayStation has decided to sit this one out. While it makes picking the top 20 most anticipated games a bit easier, it also leaves a bad taste in our mouths heading into the show. You'd never know it judging by this list, as it's absolutely loaded with amazing prospects for all platforms. As always, games with a lot of mystery still remaining get the nod over games that have been exposed to death.
Number 20, Babylon's Fall.
Platinum Games is one of our favorite Japanese developers, and it's teamed up with Square Enix for this alt history take on the action game. With no over-the-top characters or situations to use as a crutch, Platinum's gameplay will have to win the day, and that's something that it's always been great at. It was originally scheduled to come out this year for the PS4 and PC, but that doesn't seem likely now. We should get a solid release date in addition to the first gameplay demo at E3 2019.
Number 19, Luigi's Mansion 3.
The first Luigi's Mansion for the GameCube is generally considered a great game that's a bit too short. The sequel for the 3DS, Dark Moon, has fared far better with critics, which shows that the franchise is evolving into a better whole. Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Switch has several games to learn from, and it has a formula that hasn't already been beaten into the dirt by Nintendo. It will surely be one of the more interesting games at E3 2019, so it finds itself at the 19th spot.
Number 18, Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Another year, another Call of Duty, right? Not so fast. Drawing inspiration from the shocking No Russian mission in Modern Warfare 2, Activision promises that this reboot will carry that uneasy aesthetic across the entire experience. It seems to be working, as several games journalists who have watched a demo said that it's too much. There needs to be more games that make players feel uneasy, and it's odd that the next entry in a blockbuster franchise appears to be up to the task. Will Activision play a controversial demo at the show and risk backlash? Is Microsoft willing to put it in its press conference? The plot thickens.
Number 17, Splinter Cell.
If we had done this list 10 years ago, Splinter Cell would be in the top 10 instead of on the fringes, but the franchise has fallen on hard times of late. It's been 6 years since the last entry, and leading up to that release, it had a bit of an identity crisis, as it kept one foot in its stealth roots, and the other in the more mainstream action genre. Will it go back to its original hardcore concept, or creep more towards the rest of Ubisoft's catalog? The mystery around its direction lands it at number 17.
Number 16, Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Ghost Recon has become one of the best-selling franchises in the industry. It's transformed over time from rigid, team-driven plot and kill exercises to a freewheeling open-world shooter. Breakpoint appears to be taking a step back with a more serious, realistic tone. We've already seen 10 minutes of gameplay, which takes it down a notch or two on this list. There's no denying that the world will be watching when it's blown out on Ubisoft's stage.
Number 15, Borderlands 3.
Gearbox has taken some E3 wind out of Borderlands 3's sales by showing huge chunks of gameplay to anyone who will watch. At this point, we know most of the particulars. There are some tweaks, but generally it's the same experience you've grown to know and love. This might be a death knell for most sequels, but we haven't played a new Borderlands in almost 5 years. It's gaming comfort food of the best possible sort, and amidst the dazzling lights and sounds of E3, it can be grounding.
Number 14, Watch Dogs Legion.
Ubisoft is so consistent, it can be difficult to get excited about its games. We know they're going to be big, we know they're going to be polished, and we know there's a formula they're going to follow. That's a good thing for return customers and those who are familiar with Ubisoft's open-world hacker franchise. Thanks to a retailer leak, we know Watch Dogs Legion is set in a futuristic London, and you'll be able to play as any NPC in the game. It should literally offer endless opportunities.
Number 13, SHENMUE 3.
While we're sure that most other publications will have this game much higher on their lists, we've seen enough of SHENMUE 3 to realize it's going to make fans ecstatic and skeptics say, "I told you so." It finds itself in the 13th spot because it's hard to imagine that it will completely stick to its old contrivances in 2019. Will it be SHENMUE 2 in HD? Or will the franchise once again show a new way to handle open worlds? That wiggle room and the voracious fan support have intrigued us enough to place it at an unlucky number 13.
Number 12, Doom Eternal.
Our memories of the 2016 Doom reboot get rosier the more time goes on. Its simplified level design and weapon loadout seemed cute 3 years ago, but now we view them as needed purification of the genre. Retro shooters are definitely seeing a resurgence, but none of them have the budget of Doom Eternal. Bringing the multiplayer component back in-house should improve its long-term viability, and if the campaign is as good as the reboot, its spot at number 12 will seem criminal.
Number 11. Battletoads.
It might be easy to forget that a new Battletoads is coming to Xbox. A debut trailer was released at last year's E3, and we've got nothing since. We basically have no clue what it is, but we do know that it's not being developed by Rare, which means it should be released fairly soon, but it probably won't have that special pixie dust. The franchise is better known for its difficulty than its appeal. How do you balance that for a sequel in 2019? We're about to find out.
Number 10. The Outer Worlds.
Obsidian is considered one of the grandfathers of the modern action RPG. With Fallout, Knights of the Old Republic, Alpha Protocol, and many others on its resume, when it creates a new big-budget RPG franchise, it gets our attention. Looking very similar to Bethesda's post-apocalyptic series, The Outer Worlds could help deodorize the smell left behind by Fallout 76. The studio has shown around 30 minutes of gameplay so far, which is just enough to twist the hype knife.
Number 9. Gears 5.
We may regret such a low ranking for Gears 5 when the dust settles on E3 2019. It's reportedly coming this year, so it should be nearly finished. A gigantic, eye-popping stage demo is certainly in order. Initial reports and footage indicate that it's going open world for the first time, which can present challenges, but also opportunity. The Coalition has already proved that it can create a great Gears game. So what will it do now that it's hit its comfort zone?
Number 8. Animal Crossing Switch.
Animal Crossing for Switch has the potential to be one of the best-selling games on this list, but its pre-E3 hype is minimal because these games tend to change very little from one entry to the next. Though we may be wrong, a lot of assumptions are made. Switch's hardware tricks, in concert with the gameplay variety of Animal Crossing, provide a creative window for greatness. Will Nintendo play it safe or go for broke? It's what E3 anticipation is all about.
Number 7. Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Nintendo's biggest game for 2019 is the next mainline entry in the Pokemon franchise. Thanks to its direct broadcasts, we already know a great deal about Sword and Shield, which doesn't help it place higher on this list. But more importantly, nothing really stands out as being revolutionary. A 3D Pokemon game lost some novelty with the recent release of Let's Go, so that pocket monster is already out of the bag. A massive franchise like this intrinsically carries immense weight at E3, but Game Freak's track record suggests restraint.
Number 6. Halo Infinite.
While the Coalition has done an amazing job taking over the Gears of War franchise, the same can't be said for 343's handling of Halo. The 4th and 5th entries are viewed as disappointing by most fans, though the multiplayer remains strong. Xbox's most important franchise isn't going to get many more chances to get things right, and with its switch to a game as a service, all sorts of red flags are going off. The return of Master Chief as a central figure bumps it up at least a spot or two.
Number 5. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
Remakes of 3D games with higher resolution and better texturing are nothing new, but Link's Awakening for Switch is different. The original is a monochromatic 2D Game Boy release, so this project has been started from scratch and built from the ground up. As one of our favorite Zelda games of all time, we already know that the core concepts and story are great. All that's left is how it plays, and Nintendo rarely drops that ball.
Number 4. Marvel's Avengers.
With the Avengers saga wrapped up in theaters, we turn our attention to our favorite entertainment medium to keep the hype alive. Square Enix is publishing this game from Crystal Dynamics, a studio with a resume that reaches all the way back to the original Tomb Raider and Legacy of Kain. Initial reports suggest it's a cooperative hack and slash or beat 'em up, which might be viewed as rote by some, but there's nothing hotter than the Avengers right now, and Crystal Dynamics has the chops to make it something far more.
Number 3. Cyberpunk 2077.
Our game of the show for E3 2018 takes a slight step back for 2019, now that over an hour of gameplay has been released to the public. We firmly know what the game is at this point, which takes some of the shine off for E3 2019. but we wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it wins Game of the Show once again. CD Projekt Red could show up and just announce a release date, and that would be good enough for us. That's how excited we are for Cyberpunk 2077.
Number 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
If you're talking about mystery, there's no better game on this list than the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It was announced way back in 2015, and all we've got since is a couple of trailers. Square Enix has been revving up the machine over the last month with drips of new information and a fresh look at gameplay, but there are still so many questions left unanswered. How will its episodic structure work? How closely does it stay to the original? Does it play like a reskinned Final Fantasy XV? All these questions should be answered, as Square Enix has promised a massive blowout.
Number 1, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
EA's handling of the Star Wars franchise has been somewhat misguided to this point, but we feel like it's finally hit the sweet spot with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. A lightsaber-based game from one of the minds behind God of War? Sign us up. Sign everyone up. Details have been leaking that it's more akin to challenging games like Dark Souls than the vapid Force Unleashed. Q are equal parts elation and trepidation. Developer Respawn has stated that it won't be laden with microtransactions, so Jedi mind tricks should be kept to a minimum. Linear, single-player only games can be a tough sell in 2019, but the Force is definitely with Respawn. That's it for our most anticipated games of E3 2019. Did we miss something or make a foolish choice? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned to SIFTD.net in the coming days as we cover E3 with a bevy of live streams and features. Be sure to use our E3 hub during the show to sort over 1,000 pieces of E3 content by over 60 different categories. You can't get it anywhere